I'm very excited to introduce our keynote speaker today. She is one of my colleagues. I think of her very highly. Her name is Andrea Vaccari. Her presentation is Forging the Future, Responsible Innovation in a Changing Climate. She has spent a majority of her 26 career in the mining and metals industry in sustainability and operational roles. She is currently the VP, Responsible Production Frameworks and Sustainability at Freeport-McMoRan. In this role, she leads the sustainability, social responsibility, human rights, and climate strategy functions for the business. Please give Andrea a very warm welcome. And we did plan to work together.
You really didn't. Great minds, right? Great minds. Thank you so much, Trika, for that great introduction, and thank you to the board of SME for having me here today. I really appreciate it. We had an amazing weekend here, great celebration with Kathleen going into Kathleen Quirk, our CEO, going in. I probably don't need to say Kathleen, our CEO. Kathleen going into the Mining Hall of Fame on Saturday night, which was wonderful. And just, again, this is such a great gathering of people, the students that get to come and do their posters here. Really encourage everybody to go and see it, because that's where our future is. In the industry, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm Canadian, that is the accent. I did have to laugh, Tara with the bell, because my mother, we had a three-story, I grew up in Toronto, we had a three-story house, and my mother would give us the bell when we were kids if we were sick. And every time we needed mom, we had to ring the bell. So it gave me a little bit of PTSD, but also a warm feeling altogether. First and foremost, I really want to acknowledge the land we're present on today. The city of Tucson got its name from the original inhabitants of this area, Chukshun, which is essentially the name of a mountain. It's Black Base. It is a land that once looked very different than it did today, one that was blessed by the Huhugum and their incredible engineering of nature for crops and resources. They're the ancestors of this land and of the present day Othan people, who continue to be incredible scientists of their environment, honoring the land and its resources. So I would like to say thank you to the Tohono O'odham Nation, their elders, and tribe members for allowing us to be here today, and for continuing to work so closely with our industry as we continue to evolve how we work together, never forgetting the past and embracing the future. I also want to acknowledge the incredibly difficult and sad incident that we had at our Grasberg operations. Many of you have probably read about it. It was on September 8th on the island of New Guinea in Papua at our Grasberg mine. I assume that everybody in this room, if you don't know what the Grasberg mine is, then definitely take a look at it on Google Earth. It's one of the most incredible mining and engineering feats in the world. We had a significant mud rush incident there, and like I said, on September 8th, we lost 7 very beautiful souls. It was an incredibly difficult time for those families, for all of us, and for our Freeport family. We are still very much hurting from it, but we are working to rebuild. We have an incredible team there, incredible strength, and we'll continue to work with the families to really do anything that we can to help them feel safe and secure going forward. Mining in the Southwestern U.S. is at a critical crossroads. I probably don't need to tell any of you in the room that. While global markets require significantly more minerals and metals, we've already heard from Trika about critical minerals. Here in the US, we have plenty of them. We need 2 or 3 more times in some cases of copper, depending on whose numbers you look at, but they're all pretty much twice as much. Same thing with the other critical minerals that we mine here in the Southwest. This demand is outpacing resources. It's outpacing labor. It's outpacing energy when you combine it with, now we've got data centers to compete with. Who in this room would have imagined that a data center would get stopped by a group of community members? I was amazed that Tucson rejected a data center, not because I felt like the data center wasn't worth rejecting by any stretch. It's just, we're usually the topic of those conversations, especially in this area. And that really was mind-boggling to me. And when you look at the amount of energy we need, and then water, and data centers also need water, and concentrators need water, and all mining operations need water to manage dust and to produce minerals. And so when we look at that and we look at where we live in a wet desert, but it's still a desert, it concerns me. We can't keep doing things the same way that we always have. We can't keep mining the same way we've always mined. We have to think differently. But that's hard. It's hard to get funding for completely different methods of mining. It's hard to develop those processes in a way that we feel is reliable and repeatable, and that we can really invest in for something that's going to be around for 100 or even 200 years, depending on the case for different mines. So how do we solve the challenge? How do we produce 2 to 3 times as much copper or any other mineral or metal? We don't have 3 times the water, 3 times the energy, and we certainly don't have 3 times the people in our industry. We have to do things differently. Large-scale mines historically have been focused on material movement. How can we do that as fastly, as quickly, and safely as possible? How can we be the most productive? We all know the equations. But really what we need to look at now is how do we get more from less? Can we actually move less? I remember Justin Cross, who's our VP of Operational Improvement, saying that. We had this really interesting conversation a few years back. And we're always at Morenci trying to move more, move more, move more, move more. Wait a second. Can we move less and still get the same amount? But actually, can we move less and get 2 times as much? And that's the challenge that's in front of us right now. Input costs are through the roof. Trying to find labor that will come and stay, right? All of these challenges are really, really significant. So the key question is, again, how do we do more with less? Extending the lives of existing mines while we're building new mines reimagined. It's up to us and our stakeholders to craft that new future, one that's rooted in responsible mining. So that's also something that's here to stay. We know that we can't not mine responsibly. It's not the right thing to do, right? We need to embed that in everything we do. All of the amazing presentations that we're going to have today, solving challenges, trying to harness new opportunities, we know that we need to do that responsibly. If I look around the Southwest, I see several examples of what this future can look like. At our Baghdad operation, we have successfully completed the largest autonomous haul truck fleet conversion in the U.S. to date. It's somewhat amazing to me that it's actually taken that long for autonomous to take off in the United States, because it's been in Australia, it's been in other parts of the world for a very long time in the iron ore industry. But it actually makes sense, because in the iron ore industry, material movement again is the goal, right? As fast and as quickly as you can, and from quite different deposits. But now we have Baghdad, and there are a few other, obviously smaller mines as well that are doing it as well in the United States. And it's where we need to go. It helps solve a labor problem that is incredibly challenging. It helps with safety, and it can also make us more efficient. And that particular project, all of those trucks are poised to become electric at some point when that becomes feasible. In Phoenix, we're building a new remote operations center which will serve to support all of our mines in North America. What we're trying to do is, instead of the age-old of looking at the P&L sheet for every mine independently, now looking at them more as a whole unit. So if we treat it like a system instead of an individual mine, and we have 7 mines integrated in the way in which we purchase materials, in the way in which we manage them, in the way in which we deploy technologies, can we also harness something different? Can we get to a next level? That operating center in Phoenix will consolidate many functions that can be performed virtually. The new approach, we hope, will provide better coordination and bring together specialists from various areas of production so they can solve problems together. But it also, again, helps us with getting the youth out of university in a city into an exciting new job, which is harnessing technology, which is really, it's a huge challenge for us as miners, right? People don't view our industry as technologically advanced. So our hope is that it will also help us do that. We're working on an overall program, which many of you might have heard of by now, called Reinvent Mining. And that really embraces best practices, new technologies to cut costs, improve production, and help ensure long-term competitiveness. This will enable new approaches to recruitment, like I spoke of previously. At our operations across Arizona and New Mexico, we're innovating in new ways to recover copper from old stockpiles and more copper from existing oxide leach operations through our Leach to the Last Drop program. And I will tell you the funniest thing about Leach to the Last Drop. No other room of people, well, maybe if there were similar rooms at similar type conferences, would think that Leach to the Last Drop made any sense. we did a program on Discovery Television, I think it was 2 years ago, and the host and the producer looked at us and said, "Can we call it something different?" For us, Leech to the Last Drop makes a tons of sense. We also just opened a new lab here in Tucson called the Center for Innovative Solutions that really is trying to get to that next step of leaching chalcopyrite. So something that we're all working on really hard. We have over 200 columns there that are set up working on it. We have scientists, we're very excited about it. And really unlocking the code to that style of leaching where we're actually leaching primary sulfide ores. That in the copper sector that's our next step, right? That is our raison d'etre at this stage. Imagine a world where you have a copper mine that isn't a traditional leach operation, that doesn't need a concentrator, that doesn't need a smelter, right? That's huge. If we get to that next step, so we're putting in lots and lots of energy and resources and great brains behind that. I also see several other examples if I look around, and I'm sure in the room, of course, of innovation. So we've heard about South 32 already. There's also Florence Copper's innovative in situ mining, Rio Tinto's Newton technology. I think they had their first finished copper produced in the last week, which is super exciting. And again, trying to crack the nut of sulfide leaching. So what we're seeing now is this new marriage. It's a marriage of mining expertise and what we would classically see as information technology. When we think about AI, right, all those IT guys, they just keep our systems running. Not anymore. They're becoming the center of our organization. It is critical that we then not only acknowledge that, but also we may have to completely reorganize the way we run our companies. Because the reality is the traditional mine engineering is now becoming wed with technologies like AI. And so to be able to learn each other and work together and be successful, it's no longer really going to be a support function, it's actually going to be a mining function, which is just a completely different way to think about what we would normally think about as IT. Totally different. While we lean into this new technology, we can't forget about people and its potential impacts on them. We need to work cross-functionally across our organizations in ways that we never have before. Understanding how to identify and manage risks in this new way of working requires knowledge of complex topics, like projections related to the physical risks as our climate changes. Arizona, to me, is one of, being from Toronto and living in many places in the Southwest now, as I have in my mining career, Arizona is the most stark, obvious example as the climate changes of intensity. So when we look at storm intensity, look what just happened in Globe and Miami feels like it was a few weeks ago, it was probably 2 months now, but look what happened, right? While our operations did well, the town did not, the community did not, right? We're still cleaning up, and we're going to be for a long time. When we have fires in Arizona, when they move quickly, we've experienced that at our Baghdad operations a few times in the last 5 years. When we think about not necessarily drought, but periods between rainfall, right? This is what we look at in climate science when we're doing scenario analysis. Those are things that we don't necessarily integrate into our planning. So when you're planning a mine that you want to start, let's say sometime in the next 15 years in Arizona, you have to be thinking about those issues. You better be thinking about desal, you better be thinking about how to reuse more and more water, taking the worst quality water you can and making it cleaner to use it, and then using it again and again and again, because we have this huge population, right? We have to support this population. We have agriculture, right? The 3 C's of Arizona, and so we have to be thinking about that, not just how to get more units of mineral or metal, right? How can we do that successfully, sustainably, responsibly? We've recently seen that significant damage in Miami, Arizona. And ultimately, I think while we're shifting our strategies to incorporate those risks, as I just spoke about, we also just need to think about the human beings. We need to be working more closely than ever with our Indigenous partners and communities to better understand their values, their needs, and their ideas. We need to partner for the future. That's scary. You know, we have this conversation in our team, and I have a few members of my team sitting right here, Jessica and Anna. We often have this conversation with our projects engineers about, well, what if we change our mind? We can't talk to the community too early. What if we change our mind in where we want to put the impoundment? What if we change our mind in how we want to process? What if we change our mind? But the reality is that as we go forward, the more we build trust, it's done through early engagement. It's not done by withholding information. It's done by having conversations early and often. The most successful operations that we see that have started up in the last several years have been successful because they've done that. They've partnered. Not just consulted, partnered with communities and with Indigenous peoples. And that's really how we see the future of success here in Arizona. As we look to expand our operations or build entirely new projects, which many of you in the room are working on today, I often look at this and just think to myself how exciting it is to be in Arizona. There is really not a place that is as exciting right now for critical minerals if you look across the U.S. There's a few other clusters, of course, the Great Lakes region, right? Of course, Wyoming with its coal. There are a few other regions, but this is the region, and it's a really exciting place to be right now. As I close here today, I want to leave you with one key message. Like I've said, innovation is about technology, but it's just as much about people and the people behind the technology and the people who the technology may affect, either positively or negatively. Without a workforce and communities that are engaged in understanding the risks or opportunities associated with this new technology, we may miss critical risks or opportunities. We get so busy in our own areas of expertise trying to solve a technical problem that we have this tendency to forget about the people. This is the critical foundation of responsible mining, in my view. As we look to the future, the people, their knowledge, their values, our values, not just other people's values, but also our values, how they'll be impacted both positively and negatively by new technologies and resultant approaches to mining. So let's go. Let's innovate, embrace new technologies, find new ways to be successful, and provide the critical minerals our country and our people need to survive and to thrive. Let's mine responsibly for the future. Thank you. Totally happy to take questions. This is the more fun part where you don't have to sit and listen. I think there are microphones. Tara is going around. Tara's in the back. Happy to entertain any. Does everybody need more coffee? Yes.
Oh, there's one.
Thank you. I'm not in mining. I'm just here to learn about it. What would be the top three technological challenges that mines face? Could you just give me a high level?
Sure. Can you tell me who you work for first?
I'm a software developer.
Awesome.
At a Prescott.
Very cool. Okay. Awesome. Top three technological challenges. I mean, certainly in copper, it's getting over cracking the nut of sulfide leaching and doing it at scale. I mean, that is absolutely the biggest, I would say, for us. I would say for existing mines, can we modify to reduce tailings? Can we find ways that are actually economic? It's tough, right? Because those flow sheets were designed in some cases 100 years ago. So how you change that when you've still got another 50 or 60 years of mine life is very, very difficult. And then the third one, I think, is a people problem. Again, I think it's a people problem. I don't think it's a technological problem. I think it's that we need a totally different skill set than we've had in the past in our industry. And I think the reign of the mine engineer, although mine engineers are critical and important, I'm an environmental scientist, so I'm not a mine engineer, so maybe I would have more credibility if I was a mine engineer saying this, but I think the dominance of the mine engineer in mining, we need to shift that mindset and really believe that it's more than just that to make it successful and overcome technology challenges.
Thank you for your talk.
talk. It was very interesting. I'm Corey Hogue with SRK. Tailings are one of our biggest challenges just because they take up square miles of land. There's dust, there's tailings plumes, dust, stability hazards. How is Freeport advancing that conversation about maybe reprocessing tailings for some beneficial purpose, reducing stability risks and risks for dust to the communities?
Thanks, Corey. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Corey. Many of you will know plenty about GISTM, so the Global Industry Standard on Tailings Management. So Tamara Jondro, I don't think she's here, but I don't. Are there any members of our tailings team here?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, well the pumpkin is
Pumpkin.
repurposed tailings, which is exciting. So we've implemented GISTM at all of our tailings impoundments, and that particular process where you're essentially implementing a global standard across many different types of tailings impoundments has led to a lot of learning and a lot of growth, I would say, in terms of our teams and how we manage for stability to reduce dust. Dust is a constant challenge. It's a constant challenge. It's a challenge for us in New Mexico. It's a challenge for us here. It's a challenge in Chile. It's a challenge in Peru from our tailings impoundments. And so that's something. And then Tamara, for those of you who may know her, is leading a team who's really looking at what are some incremental steps that we can take, right? Can we actually do coarse particle flotation? Can we actually reduce the amount of tails that we're sending to the impoundments to make the impoundments last longer? And again, when you have a flow sheet that was determined 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, it's very, very difficult to do when you're still using traditional milling technology. And so that's another thing we're doing. And then, of course, reinvent mining, the whole program. Can we get to a world where we don't have tailings? That would be amazing. Sorry for all the tailings engineers. There's a thing.
Excuse me, ma'am?
Yes.
Mark Atkins back here at DHX Software. Wave my hand.
Hi.
You mentioned engaging with the community and do you use collaboration technologies? What are your challenges when you're trying to engage with the community? What are you trying to have happen out of these sessions, and how are they operating right now?
Yeah, so we have, at our existing mines and processing sites, we have something called our community partnership panels, where we have a number of members of the community that sit on those panels, and we talk to them once a quarter and share information that, in some cases might be surprising to folks that we would share that much information. But when we go into an early engagement, especially when we're dealing with either an expansion or a new project, it's really a conversation, it's a dialogue, right? Here's what we think we want to do. What do you think of that? And that is difficult and challenging because in the past, what we've done through regulatory processes or our own processes, right, is we've presented plans. But really what we're trying to do is challenge ourselves to have those conversations before we have plans. And so ultimately, it's a huge challenge. We do have, Jessica, what's the name of the volcanic voices? What's it?
Local voices.
Local Voices. So we have a project we're doing right now called Local Voices, where any member of our community can actually anonymously let us know how they feel about us. Let us know what bothers them about us, what they like about us. And we're actually advertising that across all of our sites in the Southwest right now, just to try to get at what lies beneath. What are we missing, right? Because there's things that we'll all talk about in conversations, right, when you're in a group meeting. And then there's the things that you'll talk about when you're one-on-one, where you don't fear, reprimand, or when you don't fear being attacked. And so what we're trying to do is get to that next level down. What are we missing? And so really it's a combination of all of those things. But I think our industry hasn't always done a great job of listening. We talk a lot about telling the story, and I think we need to flip that and listen to the stories being told to us and just do more listening. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. Doesn't mean we're going to do exactly what we're asked to do, but it does mean that we'll take that feedback and create a better, more stable organization. Yes?
Hi, Andrea, Dave Clark, speaking for GHD. Well done on the keynote, thank you. I'm mindful that Freeport's involved with a few ICMM key sort of initiatives around critical levers for emissions reductions and other areas such as that. I guess given your sustainability role, is it full steam ahead around decarbonisation efforts? And I guess I'm asking, given a lot of the majors are reining in, a lot of that majors are the capital expenditure in the current climate, so just keen to explore what that looks like for you guys from an ESG perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So we have, so my team leads our climate strategy for the business. We have the same strategy map for it. We have the same strategy map we had for it 2 years ago. We are still working really hard on scope 1 and 2 reductions mostly, I would say, and working within the ICMM environment, across collaborating. When I talked about the autonomous before, autonomous was something we wanted to do not just for decarbonization purposes. We wanted to do it because labor shortages are real. Trying to keep haul truck drivers is getting harder and harder and harder. But there's also an amazing safety element to it, right? Taking the human decision-making out of it from, being in the truck on an ongoing basis, getting exhausted, doing the same thing over and over again for 12 hours. So what we're trying to do is take projects like that where we get multiple benefits, not just, for example, the decarbonization benefit. Now the autonomous haulage itself, yeah, you're gonna get a tiny bit of maybe efficiency improvement, just again, because it's a computer program running it. But really the big opportunity there, of course, comes once the electric haul truck is sustainable. We do have our CAT test truck at Sierra, the electric truck that's being trialed right now, which we're very excited about. And then we have a number of, actually, Cerro Verde, for any of you who are familiar with Cerro Verde, which is a massive copper mine in Peru, will be effectively almost zero scope 2 starting January 2026. As we build these partnerships to build solar there that are quite significant, and then we also have a lot of hydro there. So decarbonization is still crucial. We know that is the mine of the future. We still have our climate targets, despite some of the conversations that are happening right now. The reality is, if we're going to reinvent mining, it's going to be in a decarbonized venture anyway, because we want to reduce input costs. So, for us, it really ties into multiple things. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Well, Andrea, I think we're out of time. It's a little after 9. I'd like to thank you for your contribution today, and remind everybody that coffee is available outside.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.